Well, folks, here we are on gale force winds. We're on location on, I believe it's called Tessier Place. And I'm really excited because the last time that you would have seen these gentlemen, the men who paint, we were on Zoom. They've been extremely busy, and I'm sitting here right now with Roger Trottier. Roger, could you just go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we're going to have a little chat.
Yes, I'm Roger Trottier. I'm from Saskatoon. I used to be a university prof with the ITEP program in Saskatoon, College of Ed. And along the way I got invited to go up to Alaska, and I worked up there for about 7 years. So there's been other stuff. I tell my kids I don't know what I'll be when I grow up.
Well, it's funny, just as an aside, in getting set up for this, I spent, 10 minutes explaining my setup and what I was doing to Roger, only to find out his background is in television, and he was very patient with me, and I've done that before. That's another story. So Roger, how many days now you've been on the rock, let's say?
We've been on the rock since last Tuesday.
Last Tuesday.
Yeah.
You started you landed in St. John's, and then you drove all the way to Grossmoorn, I think.
Grossmoorn.
Yeah.
And I have trouble remembering all the names of the places. We went to a couple communities south of there. It's been very interesting looking at the fishermen towns and talking to the fishermen people. We're in St. John's right now, which is back to where we landed it.
Yes, and you're in the center of the city with Peter Lewis, and we're up on a bluff that I've actually never seen before. A bit of a challenge here today. Can't really see it from the camera angle we got, but a little bit of fog rolled in.
Yes, things have been gradually revealing themselves, and I'm hopeful.
Roger, you've got a very storied career. You've been a lot of places. You've been in Alaska. What's some highlights in this particular trip for the men who paint, and for you particularly?
It's for me. I was working in Fort McMurray with a lot of the people from Newfoundland, and we had a group that performed on Friday nights and Saturdays at
Fridays and Saturdays?
A local cafe. Yeah. Sponsored these shows, and of course I just had to go and attend. So anyway, it's great to get here, and I think the last possible chance I had, I was in Eskasoni in Nova Scotia, and I thought I'd take a run across over to Newfoundland. And I went to the boat landing and took a look at my watch and did a quick calculation, decided I couldn't do this turnaround, so I'm glad to be here now.
If it makes you feel any better, the majority of people I've worked with in various industries have that same mistake. It's a pretty geographically dispersed distance between one point to the other. So you've been Cowhead, you went to Twillingate. Did you get to see an iceberg by chance?
Yes.
Yeah?
Quite a few.
Is that right?
Yeah, and these guys that I'm painting with, they went iceberg mad.
Yeah. So there's iceberg after iceberg after iceberg.
After iceberg.
Yeah.
They did a good job of painting the icebergs. Mine aren't quite as good as I wanted them to be.
Yeah.
But I'll get better.
There's something that I'm impressed with, the fact that you're in St. John's with an umbrella fully extended. Normally, you'd be like Mary Poppins and be 100 feet in the air. So,
yeah.
In the setup that you have here, I would imagine wind can be very problematic.
It was shaking things up a bit, and Paul, the local Newfoundlander contact, came over and equipped it all for me.
Well, Roger, thank you very much for coming to Newfoundland. Thank you very much for taking the time to paint this beautiful landscape that we call home. We're very grateful that the five men who paint have taken their time to come and do this. So thank you very much.
I'm so glad that we got to do this, and thanks for the opportunity.
So folks, here we are back on Gale Force Winds. We're with the men who paint. We're with someone right now. We just interviewed his father, Roger. This is Paul. Paul, just go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, My name is Paul Chartier. I have done lots of things throughout my life. I've worked at the university for a number of years, taught at the university, ran a campus that was based on arts and ecology, and then opened up an art supply store about 10 years ago, and I've been running that ever since, and of course, painting every opportunity I get.
Well, I can tell you this, I've been so excited to actually, meet you guys in person, and I've been pretty busy myself this week, hadn't had an opportunity to get out. You've gone from the west coast, Newfoundland, here you are in beautiful St. John's. I'll stand out of the picture so that everyone can see the beautiful view that's behind the fog.
Got a little soupy this morning, so we got out here and we were able to kind of lay out the rough area. And then we're working off a few reference photos and making sure that we're getting things fairly accurate. But now we're kind of in the process of making things up as we go along, because something has to work within the work.
So what we're looking at here is what you started at 8:30 this morning. Would that be around
Roughly
the time?
9 o'clock, yeah.
So this, as you can see, folks, this is a beautiful view of the Narrows, which is actually what you were looking at before the fog rolled in, right?
Yeah.
So this is a very common issue, as I've said to you, with Newfoundland. When it comes to places that you've been, and what would you suggest? What would you say Newfoundland has been for you in terms of an experience?
There's a number of things. First of all, I want to mention the people. The people are amazing. Everywhere we go, we're welcomed. We're treated like, just like we are in Saskatchewan, really, for the most part. And a lot of the people here are very accommodating for whatever we might need. But the diversity in topography, the diversity in ecosystems, the diversity of things to paint, things to see is quite astonishing.
Yeah.
We've gone all the way from barren landscapes of rocks to seashores to small towns and Trout River, and we've been all over the place, and we've seen so many different things that really it would take, probably 6 months to do it properly. We're here only 2 weeks, so we've got a very short time.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I've had the opportunity, being in the Navy, to travel not the world, but Canada. What I want to say to you is that I love this country, and I can sense from the five of you that you do as well. It's an incredible place we live, isn't it?
Yeah, we're a very fortunate few that get to live in Canada. I mean, we're from the prairies. We have the shield stretches across the top of our province. We come out to the East Coast, we come out to Newfoundland, we get to see the beautiful landscape here, we get to go out to the West Coast, we've been up to the Arctic. I mean, we've been all over Canada, and it's just never ceases to amaze us how beautiful it is.
Well, Paul, I can say this, that we're privileged to have you in this province, privileged to have you painting the beauty that this place we're surrounded by. One thing I will tell you, though, if I had known that you were going to wear Philadelphia Flyers gloves, I don't think we would have let you in the province. But we'll let that go this time.
Well, what happened was I rolled into St. John's. Yeah. I had to get something for my hands.
Yeah.
And these were only $2.
So are you a Philadelphia fan?
I am not a Philadelphia fan, just so everybody knows. Absolutely not. But if you're going to put paint on them, may as well be Philadelphia.
Now that's a good, I was in Nova Scotia one time, and I went in to visit this guy for some advertising, and he had a Montreal Canadiens mat. Anyway, I'll go in there and say, "Oh, it's nice you're a Canadiens fan." Absolutely not. He said, "Did you wipe your feet in the logo?"
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, thanks.
Thank you very much
for being here.
All right, thank you.
Well, folks, we're back. We're with the third of 5 men who paint. We do have a 6th here today, which we'll get to in a second. Cam Forster, just say hello to the Gale Force Winds audience and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Cam Forster. I am a full-time artist. After 32 years in the golf and club industry, being a club manager and golf pro, I gave that up so that I could paint full-time.
Now, if my business partner was here, he would literally probably put tape across my mouth, because the moment I hear the word golf, I go off on tangents. But anyway, that's fine. I won't do that today. We're here to talk about paint. Tell us a little bit about how you got into this.
Oh gosh, back in 1970s, coming out of high school, my dad was an architect, want to be like dad, right? Or like your parents. So Started into architecture and decided it wasn't for me, so I got out of that to play golf and coach skiing, and all that time that I was doing that, I kept on painting and drawing, and very first art show in 1988 in Maple Creek, Saskatchewan, and in the early 90s I started painting watercolor, and a gentleman that I was painting with said, if you want to be anything in art, you got to paint big and you have to paint in oil. So then I saw an advertisement one day that said oil painting at the Emma Lake Landscape, which was close to home for me. So I went to the Kenderdine campus to learn about oil paint, and all I got stuck with was a bunch of friends. I gotta use it that way.
Yeah. I like how you use the F word there. Cam, I've said to your colleagues, it's quite a privilege for us Newfoundlanders to have you here. I think there's an affinity for this land that you will hear, and if you've been with a person from Newfoundland, you probably understand there's a call, there's a feeling of them to come back home. Part of it is the water on the beach, but it's also the topography. Like, it's so unique. What's your take on that?
So yesterday we're painting Petty Harbor. And where we were set up, there's a group of young guys, maybe in their mid-20s or so.
I'm just going to move you down here a little
and,
bit.
And they kept going by us, and they're going up along the docks, and every time they would come around, they would slow down and they were watching what we were doing. And then at one point they rolled down the window, and the young guy said, it's getting better every time I come by and see it. And I said, well, how can it not get better? Look what I'm getting to paint. And the first thing he said is, it's my home.
Yeah.
That touches it. It's their home. They feel it and they give that off. It's fabulous.
Well, what I've gotten from my association over the last couple of months, just talking to you guys on emails and that, and I said it to Paul, it's this country. We are incredibly lucky to be in this country, and I sense from the five of you that you are proud Canadians. Would that be true?
Yeah, it is. It's not. I won't get on this soapbox, but it's not a provincial border.
No.
Right? Everybody say, "Oh, this province is nicer than that province." It's Canada.
Yeah.
And we've been fortunate that we've seen it now from coast to coast and had the opportunity to paint and meet the people, and we're all in our home. It's fabulous.
Someone said to me one time, "What are you doing for vacation?" Well, I'm going to Winnipeg, and they were saying, "Winnipeg? What are you going to Winnipeg for?" I can tell you this, it was probably the most beautiful vacation that I've ever had. And there's assumptions about this place and that place, but you're right, we're all Canadians, one border, it's just an incredible place to be born,
And every place, even Winnipeg's someone's home.
Yeah.
And they're proud of it. Why would anyone ever put down someone else's home?
So here it is, Friday, you're coming to the close of this. Any last thoughts for what you've been through over the last 10 days?
I want to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now I want to bring my family along and not worry about my paints, but I want to bring my family out to show them what I've been able to see.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Well, I'm going to say this, thanks again. What I know of what you have all done is pretty intense. And I know you love what you do, it's obvious, but just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for being a part of what we're doing.
Well, folks, here we are. We're on a bluff that I've never seen before. Sorry for repeating myself, but it's pretty cool to be in a place that you lived in a city your entire life. And that's kind of what's happening here. The men who paint are opening my mind. And we're here with Greg Hargarten.
Hargarten, that's right.
Got it. Greg, just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about, where you came from.
My name's Greg Hargarten. I left university to play rock and roll with a rock band. Did that for 15 years.
Wow.
And when I turned 40, my wife bought me a gift to go to the Kenderdine campus, and I met all these guys. And really, I was into art before that, but that really sort of got me excited about painting. And then these guys have been inspirational. When you get a group of guys that are all painting together, you learn so much from each other.
Yeah.
And it's been awesome. And we've been painting together now for over 15 years, traveling all over Canada and really learning art and about the country together. It's been fabulous.
Well, it's interesting, you say that these gents have inspired you. My brief association with you all is that you've inspired me as well. And that's important in life, you need people around you that are going to inspire you. I have not paid attention to art, frankly. And I'm probably like the average Canadian, but I think what you're doing is something really interesting, you know. It's something special.
Well, it's interesting because Mr. Van Rees really, he ended up at the Kenderdine campus because he taught at the U of S, and this was like the Kenderdine campus was an extension of that university. And he's a soil scientist, and he was teaching classes up there and wandered through the studio. And he was suddenly struck like, oh, that looks like fun, that looks exciting. And well, he can tell you more, but he had no experience at painting at all before he kind of got hooked up with this group.
So
and now, you know, he's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I find it ironic, and I'm going to talk to him. I said this before, my joke's getting old, but a soil scientist comes to the rock. Always funny. But Greg, so yeah, you know, one of the challenges of Newfoundland is weather. And I kind of advise you guys about that. How have you been able to do this? You know, here we are today, we're looking at the Narrows. Yes, folks, the Narrows is out there somewhere. How's it been in terms of, you know, plein air painting outside and trying to get through the elements? You had a snowstorm in May, end of May, in the middle of this
almost in June in Twillingate, yeah. Canada all over is a bit of a challenge, but Newfoundland has been more of a challenge. I think for some reason, the sun's only out when we're traveling from one place to another and looking at all this fabulous landscape going, why can't we stop right now? So it's been that. We've had a lot of rain. It's a lot colder here than we expected, actually, you know. Yeah. As prairie guys, we think, oh, we're pretty tough with whatever, but it's different here. It's humid, it's cold, and I mean, for June, the trees are just, some of them don't even seem to have buds yet, you know.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is. It's a lot different than I expected, certainly. But Newfoundland has also been a lot different than I expected. The landscape here is so varied. You drive on that highway and it changes every half hour. And it's like, you know, there's marshy areas, you got almost like badlands. And it's just an amazing province. And every place we've stopped, we've had 4 different stops. So we were in Grossmorn, and we were in, you know, sort of the west coast, and then Twillingate, and then now St. John's. We could paint 2 weeks or 3 weeks in each one of those places, you know, and we had like 3 days in each of them. Yeah.
You know, it's important, I think, to anyone living in a place is perspective from someone not from there. And it's interesting to hear your perspective of that, because I think what that'll do is make the people that listen to it, that live here, more grateful, you know? Yeah,
you know, and it's funny because you don't really, you see it every day, you don't really, it just goes by. You've seen it since you were a kid, you don't really even, it doesn't register until you go away, and then you come back, you know. You know, Saskatoon is in the middle of the prairies, you know, to draw a comparison, like I've been away a lot, and growing up there, you just want to get out, almost, right? And then you go back and you start to realize how it's actually kind of a special place. Canada all over is very special. And I can see growing up here, you would just take it for granted maybe that the rest of the country looks like this, but it certainly does not, you know?
You know, 15 years as a musician, that in and of itself probably is a 6-hour podcast that we could do. Did you have a chance to hear any of the local music while you've been here, or have you been too busy?
We have not. Well, our tour guide, Paul Joy, was playing some Newfoundland songs. And my wife's from Belfast, so I'm quite familiar with the Irish traditional music. Right. And the Newfoundland music and the Irish music are kind of go hand in hand. There's a lot of influence there. But you know, now that we're in St. John's, Paul has promised me that we're going to go out and hear some music, and we're here on the weekend, so I'm sure we will get to experience it.
There's a lot of music happening here. You know what, Greg? It's been a pleasure to talk to you. It's been a pleasure to get to know you and your colleagues. So thanks again for coming to Newfoundland and doing what you're doing. Keep doing it. I'll be following you for many years to come.
Right on. Well, you got to come out to the prairies now.
I will. I've been there many times before, as you may know, but I will look at it in a different light, and I have some more friends.
Well, yeah, phone us when you get out there.
I will.
Right on.
Well, folks, here we are back on Gale Force Winds, and I just made a joke that it's the first time that I've actually interrupted people as they work. You continue to work, Peter, if you want. If you can multitask like that.
I'm not very good at multitasking.
Okay, well, whatever you feel comfortable doing. Here I am. I'm interrupting one of St. John's finest painters, Peter Lewis. I don't know Peter. We were just talking. We went to the same school, but Peter, you know, why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself? That'd be great.
Yeah, no, I'm from St. John's. I've been here all my life pretty well, except for some years when I was younger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Keep going.
Yeah, so
come over to this side.
I've been painting now for about 20 years, I guess. I was a school teacher, phys ed teacher. I had a full career as a teacher.
You were a phys ed teacher.
Phys ed teacher, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So I'm now just enjoying my retirement from teaching, but I've been painting. I started painting halfway through my teaching career, so I was able to do both. I was fortunate there.
Sorry, I'm very distracting here. I'm trying to get a good angle. That's fascinating, phys ed teacher. And then, so what got you? You had always been painting a little bit, or?
I got into painting about, in my sort of very late 20s, when I was about 30, and I was exposed to it, and I got addicted, really. I did courses, and I did deferred leave as a teacher. I did that 4 times as a teacher, which enabled me to pursue painting and, try different mediums, and I've kind of fallen towards using oil, and right now I'm painting with a palette knife, which is a bit different than a brush, but...
just hold it up to the camera so people can see what you're painting with. Palette knife. I noticed that, and I remarked on it when I saw you. It's really neat how it works, too.
Yeah.
Because it leaves a little bit of, I don't know what you would call, like, the paint is not flat. Well, I don't even know how to describe it.
It's kind of three-dimensional.
Yeah.
You get, the paint is coming out at you, so I'm sort of putting the paint on a bit like paste, kind of. And nice thing about it, you have a knife, and you can wipe it off, and you have a clean implement to work with, unlike a brush.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's something I really enjoy, yeah.
Well, it's obvious, and your work is incredible. The podcast that my partner and I created is very, very focused on entrepreneurship and business.
Yeah.
I would be remiss if I didn't talk about, it's one thing to take some time off as a teacher. It's another thing to paint and then open a studio.
Yes.
Just talk a little bit about the inspiration and how it took you to take that leap into the entrepreneurial art world.
Well, being a painter, I was very fortunate to have a wife who was a business person, and she ran her own business downtown as a Xerox agency.
Okay.
So she had her building, and she had space, so it was a kind of an easy move to open a gallery there, and so we did, and we've been there now probably 12 years.
Yeah. You know what amazes me? Sorry to interrupt. You know what amazes me about entrepreneurs is that it was somewhat of an easy move. It's a tendency to gloss over the challenge and the you must have butterflies in your stomach when you were doing this.
Well, I was teaching, and I was teaching at the time, but my wife was a business person. So she was there, and she helped run the gallery. She was really instrumental, really, to me being a painter and having a gallery.
Yeah.
So But,
well, tonight, I know this is, and whenever you get into time on a podcast, it doesn't mean very much, but we are going to go to your studio tonight, and I'll do some video there. I'm excited to see what the men who paint have painted. What does it mean to you to have 5 painters come to Newfoundland like this? Like, I'm interested in your perspective on that.
Yeah, well, I think it's just it's a real privilege to have a chance to paint with 5 wonderful painters from Saskatchewan, and but it's also great to be able to take a bit of time to show them St. John's, although they've been here now quite a while, painting around the island. So just fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it comes to your studio, what in terms of what are I don't know, how many paintings would you have on display at any given time?
Yeah, well, we have about 10 artists in our gallery, and we have exhibitions every once in a while.
Yeah.
Maybe 4 or 5 a year. Yeah, so. The gallery is kind of, and we have a person there, help running the gallery.
Yeah.
So
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Peter, it's an absolute pleasure to meet you. You have been an inspiration to many that I know have told me
Jerry,
that
yeah.
you have been, despite the fact this is the first time I've ever met you. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for hosting these men who paint as they travel the island and reside now in St. John's for a few days. So I'm looking forward to tonight.
Well, I thank them for giving me the opportunity to meet them and share a bit of time with them. Yeah, just great. Yeah.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah. Cheers.
Well, folks, here we are back on Gale Force Winds. We're with our fifth and final man who paints. We had a guest. There is a sixth today, and Peter Lewis, and I'm going to put these up in succession of how we did the interviews, just to keep the flow. But enough about that. Ken, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, no, my name is Ken Van Ries. I'm a retired university professor. I got into art late in my life, probably 15 years ago, when I decided to incorporate art into my science field courses. And
Interesting.
Yeah, and I went to an art gallery with my mother, and I saw these landscape paintings because I'm not an art guy. And I thought, this is kind of interesting. Maybe I could incorporate art into my science classes. And my next reaction was, no, you can't, because you don't know anything about art. So I talked to my sister-in-law, who was a high school art teacher, and she said, try these things out. I'll write a couple rules out for you.
Yeah.
And I did with the class, and they loved it. So they would dig soil pits, look at vegetation, and then they would interpret the landscape through art.
Would they paint it as well? Or?
Well, in the early days, it was just oil pastels, but then I decided I need to learn something about art, and that's when I started taking painting classes the following year, and that's when I met the rest of these guys.
That's fascinating, Ken. Yeah. I have a feeling your classes were a little bit popular, were they?
They were, actually. Yeah. We had a lot of fun, but students love going out in the field, and I think that's what I enjoy the most, is taking students outside.
Ken, one of the boys called me Lippy Lou, so I'm going to do a Lippy Lou thing here. Most of the professors that I had would not take that ingenuity and like bringing that to the class. That's fascinating.
Yeah,
I love it.
No, and to me I love teaching. To me, that's the best part of the job, being a professor, and I just love taking students out, showing them the environment, and I had that experience as a student as well.
Did you?
And I wanted to translate that into my own classes as well and take students out to the field. So. And they all appreciate it. I mean, you learn so much more when you're outside, experiential learning. It's just the way to go.
In all of those classes and all of those students, is there one particular incident that stands out in your mind?
Yeah, actually. We did the class at NLA Kenderdine campus, and the university unfortunately shut it down. But I took the class, I still continue to take the class there, and we would do these special things where each person would have to pick out an artist and give their biography and talk about the artist. And I had a lady in the class stand up, a student, and she says, my name is so-and-so, and I am the great-great-granddaughter of Ernest Kenderdine, who was the fellow who actually founded the camp. And it just blew me away that here I was, having this student talk about her great-great-grandfather, who was a famous artist in Saskatchewan, and it was right there in my class. It was just phenomenal.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was a special, special moment.
Ken, one of the things that I'm going to do is bring it back to the art. I realized I didn't talk. Here we are with the men who paint. I did touch on a little with Peter and the way he paints. Can you talk a little bit about your painting and how this started? I saw this, folks, as a blank canvas. What really, really astounds me now is how beautiful that is. Talk a little bit about the process, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I started out as acrylics because it was just easier to work with for me, but last year I made the decision to move over into oils, and I just liked that it was yummier. And I love the idea of putting.
So you eat the paint?
No, I don't eat the paint, but because Van Gogh did. They didn't last very long, did they?
I didn't know that.
So, but no, it's for me. It's just yummier. You can put it on thicker, and it's just buttery. It's just kind of those feelings that you can't do with acrylic paints. And so for me, I just like to put it on thick. Not as thick as Peter, and I would love to move to that, to take a palette knife and just slap it on, but I'm just not there yet. So.
Yeah.
But
Well, look, you know, I was looking at Peter, and I struggle to put butter on my bread. So what he's doing is blowing me away. I see what you're saying, though, about, you know, the way it's got a little bit of raised paint
Yes.
and that it's got, like
Yes.
Peter said, a 3-dimension to it.
oh, I know.
right?
Well, his is certainly 3 dimensions,
Yeah.
and that's the kind of thing I like too. Is that you can layer it on and put more and more on. Acrylic paint, you can't do that unless you add mediums to it. But I just like the feeling of oils.
I'm just going to step aside and point out that, so the painting that we see here is actually the church that we see there. And you know what is really cool about how you're doing this? There's a lot of telephone poles and wires and everything. You've obviously seen through all them
And all the
put
people.
the painting without that.
Yeah, and that's just part of learning too. Eh? I mean, the experience and having these guys is really, really helpful too, because you run into a problem and say, hey, how do I fix this?
Yeah.
How do I move forward? And it's been wonderful painting with these guys because they've been so encouraging to me, because I was really the only guy that didn't know anything about painting when I started with these guys, and they've been really, really supportive. So.
Well, Ken, I'm going to give you the last word
Okay.
of the 5 men who paint, and now the 6th, who's the guest there, Peter Lewis. What? Just give us, you know, your final thoughts.
I never realized that Newfoundland would be so diverse in terms of its landscapes. You've got everything from mountainous areas to plains to coastal regions to these fishing villages. Absolutely spectacular. And I don't know why I, as a Canadian, have avoided this province. And I am going to come back here with my family because I think it's just a fabulous place to go visit. And I'm really, really pleased with not only the landscapes, but just the people. So friendly here. So helpful.
Well, I think, you know, what you're experiencing here is, you know, what? 5 degrees in June, and you kind of got to laugh, don't you?
No, you do. You have to.
It's ridiculous.
You got to make the best of it. Yeah.
Well, I think the other thing that when you meet Newfoundlanders away now, you realize there's a longing to come back to this, because there's
There
something
is.
special about the nature that we live in. Right?
Absolutely, and I think it's really interesting. It's just the pride that the people in this province have for their province, and it's just really neat to see.
Well, on that note, you know, we've suffered a lot over the years, and I think there's a real resurgence. There's a confidence, and there's people like yourself coming to the province and giving us this feedback is really important. So, you know what? This Canadian country, this country we call Canada, is amazing, isn't it?
It is
And
amazing. It really is, and I'm glad now that I've gone from coast to coast and up to the Arctic, and so I've seen a lot of it. So it's been wonderful.
Well, you've seen a lot more than most of the Canadians. Thank you very much for being here. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for the interview.
Well, folks, here we are. We are at we're in Tessier Place in the heart of St. John's, Newfoundland, and I'm standing here with my childhood friend who moved away in 1991. Would it be?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
The last video you and I made together was you leaving for the RCMP.
That's right.
You've had a storied career in the RCMP. Just, I'm not going to get you to tell your story. I'll tell it a little bit for you. This man grew up in St. John's. Actually, you grew up in Steamboat Crossing.
That's right.
Moved into St. John's, and we became very good friends. And it was at a tumultuous time in my life. My dad had just passed away, and your family kind of took me under your wing. I probably ate more food in your mom and dad's house than I ate in my own. And it was an absolute pleasure to have you as a friend growing up. And you've come back this year for a year. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing in St. John's, and then we'll get into the men who paint.
Okay, well, about a year ago, my daughter Taryn and my other daughter Kira got together and they said, we'd like to go someplace after school and COVID's done. And they were looking at Europe, and then they kind of decided to change their travels somewhere closer, and they settled on St. John's because my parents are still here, and they ended up coming to St. John's. So, but along the way, around December, the conversations changed, and my wife was involved in the conversation. So it was a family trip then all of a sudden. And we were going to rent a place here for a year, and we ended up getting a place on Freshwater Road, and it's been a great year. We've learned lots more about Newfoundland. I've learned more about Newfoundland this year, I guess. Summer's coming up. Than I ever knew about Newfoundland, traveling to all these places with these guys. It's been a great experience for my family. The kids are all, they've matured while they've been here. They've taken their work serious, their skills serious. My 2 daughters have been working in the city since last September, and the boys, my twin boys, have been going to Brother Ice School. And we did leave one son back in Saskatoon. He's going to the University of Saskatchewan, so he didn't come for the entire year, but he made it out here twice for holidays and brought some friends. And we've had a lot of friends come and visit us here because we're here, and we know a lot of people in our travels with the RCMP, of course. So how this came about was my wife, Nicole, she's from Tisdale, Saskatchewan, and her uncle is right behind us here painting under the umbrella, Roger Trottier, and her cousin, his son, Paul. They're both from Saskatoon, and so of course they're family, and they've been involved with the Men Who Paint for a long time, almost 20 years I think. Paul started painting, and he was teaching at an off-campus art camp. It was kind of an art experience camp, and he was teaching painting and in different areas. He was kind of I heard him say cross-pollination, because he was including science with art and other subjects, and looking at those other subjects from an art perspective. And so you had a lot of students go through that campus up at Emma Lake, and that's where the Men Who Paint kind of got to know each other, because they were taking these art courses with Paul, I believe. And then I was always at Paul, you have to come and paint in Newfoundland. You'll love the scenery there. And they had already been to Germany, they'd been to Haida Gwaii over in BC, they'd been up to Ivavik in the national park up in the northwest territorial border. And so he was excited about it, but I never took him seriously. And then one day last year, we went to an art show of theirs in Saskatoon, and I put it to him again. I said, I really think you should come to Newfoundland. We're there. I'll drive you around and make arrangements for you. And before the exhibition had ended, he'd gone around and spoken to Ken Van Rees and Gray Hargarten and Cam and Roger, and all of us were in a huddle by the end of the exhibition talking about this trip, and they were excited. And I had a feeling that they were going to finally decide to come, and here they are.
Well, wow, Paul, it's, you've had quite an interesting journey yourself. This in particular, though, has been exciting for me, and my little tiny part in it has been a lot of fun. Just listening to your stories, the pictures, Paul had been texting me pictures, and I put a little video. Some of you may have seen that video. What's amazing to me is the nooks and crannies that you've been in. To your point, you know more about this province now than I do, and you've been gone for 35 years, right?
Yeah, and I've got a lot more to learn.
Well, it's a huge expanse, isn't it?
It is. It's great. And you know what? I just want to say I really appreciate the help that you've given these guys. You stepped up, yourself and Alan, with Gale Force Winds, and had Zoom meetings with them, and were involved in some of the preparation, and you've made videos that you posted on YouTube, and it's just been tremendous. It's a big boost for their trip here, and as well, of course, Peter Lewis Art Gallery. Peter's here painting today, of course, and you've interviewed him, and he's such a great host. I mean, they've really been so good to the Men Who Paint, and we're really thankful for that. And even today, inviting them out for a plein air painting time here in St. John's with the fog. They've had a great time, and it's been it's just capped off the trip. Like being able to come and paint with a fellow artist, as notable as Peter. He's a great artist. I love his work, and it just really sets the whole trip. It's just brought it back to St. John's. We were in Lark Harbor, Bottle Cove. We were in Rocky Harbor. We rode at Norris Point, Woody Point. We went through the Tablelands. They got some beautiful paintings in Trout River.
Are you making notes, Roger? You can't remember all these places, remember?
We took them up to the Arches Provincial Park, just north of Grossmorn. I mean, Grossmorn's amazing.
Yeah.
Any painter in the world should be there. But it was really great when we traveled to Twillingate, and it was a rainy day on our trip up. We had the sun going up, and then we got there and it was kind of fogging in. But we went around that first evening to find icebergs, of course, and we ended up in Merritt's Harbor with this beautiful, gigantic iceberg at the end of the cove, at the opening of the cove, and all of the Men Who Paint painted there that evening, and the sun came out, which was just phenomenal. And it's done it a few times.
The sun came out.
The sun came out in Twillingate, and it just lit that iceberg right up. And these guys basically were, of course, elated when they saw that because, as I've heard them say, the artists chase the light. And you know, it's just been incredible watching these guys paint. I've never really, you know, been exposed to painting or art, and I really enjoyed watching the process. And these guys are true painters. They get up in the morning, 6 o'clock. They go out and they're trying to get the sun coming up, and they're painting then, and then they're taking photographs when it's not sunny out, and then they paint all day, and they pack their lunch. And some nights we got home 9:30, 10 o'clock in the dark. We're driving back to the place where we were staying, and it was a lot of work.
It's an incredible pace.
It was a fast pace.
To be honest with you, you were texting me. I was getting tired just from reading your texts.
Well, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work, and I appreciate how much work they do and put into their artwork. You know, like, it's incredible. I took pictures and video of all of them and sent it to you, of course, and Greg Harknard, and he's going to put it together, and they put it on their site, Men Who Paint, as well. And it's exciting to watch these guys go through the process, and then the end product when you see it.
Yeah.
And all of these guys have a different style, and I can't say that I have a favorite. Everybody has a unique style, and they've all produced a piece of art at a certain place where they've all painted together, and I'll go, okay, today Cam's got this, he nailed it, like the lighthouse. I loved it.
Yeah.
And then the next day we're in Merritt Harbor, and Greg gets it, you know, and next day we're at Norris Point. Paul paints this Shea Cliff, and it's amazing. It's like the group of 7 paintings, you know, like, it's amazing. And then we're down by the icebergs, you know, and Roger does this painting of Bond Bay, you know, with the houses in the hillside. The colors were beautiful. Everybody has a different perspective. That's what I've learned about art, you know, like, you say, oh, he's a good artist, or she's a good artist, or he's not very good. Well, I've learned over the past time, everybody has their different styles, and they're all great artists. And these 5 here, there's a painting that I like from all of them. And so it's quite interesting. I've learned a lot.
Well, Paul, I will tell you this. You know, you deserve a lot of credit. I mean, the Men Who Paint did a lot of the work. You certainly did a lot of the heavy lifting to make this happen, and for that, you know what, the province should be grateful. You're a man who's spent a lot of time, and I'll tell you one thing about Paul Joy. People talk, my brother served in Afghanistan. That's an incredible thing. What this man standing in front of me has done with the RCMP, he served his country, and he served it in a way that I know that I could never do. So, Paul, you have deep respect from me for that, and I feel proud of you, and I'm glad that you're here and, you know, helping revitalize the economy of Newfoundland. Buying a house and furniture and having your family here is phenomenal.
Well,
thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate that, and I just want to wish you all the luck in your new business, Gale Force Winds. I know how much work you've put into it, and I know it's a love and a passion of your life, and you've worked hard all over those years in advertising, and you're finally getting to do something that you really like, and I wish you all the best in it.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Paul. Gale Force Winds came out of the pandemic, so there's lots of things that the pandemic brought that weren't very good, and this one is a lot of joy. So,
all the best to you and Alan. All the best to you and Alan. Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gerald.
And hopefully we'll have a big crowd tonight. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
I know, that's good. It's always good to start the show with a couple sold.
It is for sure, yeah. All right. Good luck. Have fun with it.
Yeah, thank you. It already is. It's looking great.
It's not coming down.
It really has been quite amazing. This province is undersold in many ways, in my opinion.
And keep it that way.
The beauty that we've seen, and we said it about 3 days into our trip, we could spend 2 months here and not even touch the surface of the beauty of this province. The changes in topography, the ecosystems, the diversity of people, the diversity of environments and systems. We went from barren rock-covered land in the tablelands, to these lush places around rivers, to Gross Mourne, and then out to Twillingate, which is another very diverse section. So we have loved our time here. And we are so grateful that we've had this opportunity to actually come down here and do this. Of course, St. Bon's I've mentioned, but also Jerry Carew, Gale Force Winds has been a huge help for us with podcasts and those kinds of things. He came out and videoed us today when we're all standing around drinking our coffee. I'm sure you guys will see it. Rather than painting, we're drinking coffee, but we were painting. But we did go out with Peter this morning and had a go at what's the name of the place?
Tessier's Park up on
Tessier's Park.
Saw the white curtain of fog today.
And then the white curtain of fog rolled in. So, we're making stuff up as we go along, trying to be as accurate as possible.
Where's Signal Hill, Peter?
Okay, where's that tower? Exactly. It's right above that window there. All right, good. Peter was great with us today. That was fantastic. During this tour, one of the main reasons why we've come to Newfoundland is because one of your sons came home last year with my cousin Nicole and Paul Joy, and their family is here. I don't know where Paul is. Oh, he's back there, yeah. So Paul came along with us for a week and toured us all the way up to Gross Mourne, all the way up and down the coast, all the way up to Twillingate, and then all the way back to St. John's. He took time out of his busy schedule, their busy schedule with their young family, and allowed us to come and do it. So thank you, Nicole and Paul, for allowing us to do that and bringing us to Newfoundland. We do appreciate it. Just, we hope you enjoy what you're seeing today. We did our best. It's all about, for us, it's about a feeling and an emotion and being connected to the land. For us, that's very important. So when we get to a place, we want to soak it in, we want to meet the people, we want to see the beautiful vistas, but also feel the land in some ways. And in Newfoundland, you guys got that in spades, so thank you very much for having the men who paint here. Does anyone have any questions that I can make an answer up to? Great. Thanks.
Got any funny stories?
Funny stories? I've got millions of them. Yeah, but some of them I can't share. No, it's always accommodations are always funny because we're going from one spot to another. We basically live out of suitcases and backpacks. So when we're hiking anywhere into the bush or up the side of a hill or whatever it might be, we've got all our gear on the back. As plein air painters, Peter, you're very familiar with that. That's what we do and how we do it. And there's always foibles along the way of somebody who has to put garbage bags in their shoes because their shoes have gotten wet. Or, I wasn't pointing at you, Dad, but you just brought attention to yourself. But there's always...
We did get a great new saying, though.
We did?
Yeah, you can't see it from the road. That's good enough.
Yeah, you can't see it from the road. That's good enough. We got a lot of really interesting sayings, let me tell you. What's that guy's name from Trouble River?
Oh, Crocker.
Crocker. If you have any problems, just tell him Crocker sent you. Don't worry about it. Okay. But we had nothing but fun, and really, truly, the people, especially in the service industry where we have the most contact, have been fantastic. So thank you, Newfoundland. Yeah. All right.